So Mike Pompeo is the current head of the CIA, and Donald Trump wants him to be Secretary of State. Well, Rand Paul grilled him at a hearing on his approval, and this is something, it happened about 5 days ago or maybe a week ago, but it just came across my desk now, and I was so impressed by it that I had to cover it. So let's watch. This is absolutely glorious.
Thanks for your testimony, and thanks for going through this grueling enterprise and your willingness to serve the country. You discussed with Senator Kaine a little bit about whether or not the president has the authority to bomb Assad's forces or installations in Syria, and you mentioned historically, well, we've done it in the past. I don't think that's a complete enough answer. I mean, my question would be, do you think it's constitutional? Does the president have the constitutional authority to bomb Assad's forces? Does he have the authority, absent congressional action, to bomb Assad's forces or installations?
Senator, as I think I said to Senator Kaine, I'm happy to repeat my view on this. Those decisions are waiting. Every place we can, we should work alongside Congress to get that. But yes, I believe the president has the domestic authority to do that. I don't think that has been disputed by Republicans or Democrats throughout an extended period of time.
Actually, it's disputed mostly by our founding fathers, who believe they gave that authority to Congress, and actually they're uniformly opposed to the executive branch having that power. In fact, Madison wrote very specifically, he said, the executive branch is the branch most prone to war, therefore we have, with studied care, vested that authority in the legislature. So the fact that we have in the past done this doesn't make it constitutional, and I would say that I take objection to the idea that the president can go to war when he wants, where he wants. With regard to Afghanistan, some have argued that it's time to get out of Afghanistan. What do you think?
Senator, I think the course of action that President Trump has taken there is the right one. It is humble in its mission. It understands that we've been there an awfully long time. It has an objective of leaving, but is not prepared to leave until such time as we can put America in a position where we can greatly diminish the threat to our homeland from terrorism that may emanate from there, and with an effort alongside that, which will be required to achieve that first objective, to create, I want to be humble, more stability in Afghanistan.
Well, actually, the president has been very specific at times on this, and he said it is time to get out of Afghanistan. We are building roads and bridges and schools for people that hate us. It is not in our national interest. That's a direct quote. So the president said it was time to get out. It sounds like you say it's time to stay. Is that a difference in opinion? Some here worry that you're going to be too much in agreement with the president. I actually worry you're going to be too much in disagreement with the president. One of the things I have liked about the president is he says it is time to come home. Let's declare victory and come home. But it sounds to me like you were saying we need to stay.
Senator, sounds like I have a Goldilocks problem. Too close, too far. Different porridge for each. Senator, the president also said in the summer at Fort Myer that he was committed to the mission that I outlined there. That's consistent with what Secretary of State has been trying to do diplomatically. It's consistent with what Secretary Mattis has been trying to do by supporting Afghan forces in the country. I believe, and I share the president's view, that we have a continued role there. And while I want to get out in the same way you do, I have friends who are serving there. I've had friends, as I know you would, who have been injured. We're not at a place yet where it's appropriate to do.
Here's the problem is, are we ever going to be at that place? I mean, so you've got people, the administration, yourself now saying in your written questions back to me that there's not a military solution. So we're sending our GIs out there to risk life and limb when there is no military solution, hoping that we, sounds a little bit like Vietnam, hoping that we get to a little position, let's bomb the crap out of them to get them to negotiate, and we'll get to a little better negotiation. In the end, it was no better in Vietnam. It was still a disaster in the very end, and a lot of people wasted their lives in the end for that. I think that there is no military mission, and when you admit there's no military mission, it is hard for me to square with your desire still to stay. And we say, well, we want to leave, but when? We've been there 18 years. I think we should declare victory and come home. I think we won the battle. We did. We literally did win. There's nobody left alive who plotted to attack us on 9/11. I've asked people repeatedly, tell me the names of those left alive in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, anywhere in the world. We're now sending people to war who weren't even born when 9/11 was. And every administration comes, not just Republican, Democrat, they come and say, oh, well, it's just fine. We're going to keep fighting these wars. And it's like that it has something to do with 9/11. No, it has nothing to do with 9/11. everybody around the world that is a radical Islamist we now are at war with because we said, oh, we got the permission to go at 9/11. But when you were in Congress, you had a little bit different position. You know, your position with Libya was that we should get authorization. Your position in 2013 was also, you wrote an op-ed with Tom Cotton saying, well, we should give the president the authority he needs to go into Syria. Not because you were like me that we shouldn't get involved in another war, because you were eager to get involved and you wanted to give the president permission and say, please, President Trump, let's go to war in Syria. But I think we need to think these things through, and we need to not be so carte blanche that the Constitution does give just carte blanche, permission for the president to do whatever he wants. Do you think the Iraq War was a mistake?
So I was running a machine shop in Kansas at the time, so I don't have a contemporaneous view that I expressed.
No opinions back then? How about opinions now?
I may well have had an opinion.
Was there?
But no, my opinion now is, look, we had bad intelligence. I've been one of the few CIA directors who's been willing to say we get it wrong, in spite of all the enormous resources.
But it's not just bad intelligence.
But we did have bad intelligence.
We did geopolitically the wrong thing. We got rid of the enemy of Iran. We emboldened Iran. We made it worse. We brought chaos to the Middle East. We are still suffering the ramifications and repercussions of the Iraq War. But your president said it very clearly. He says that the Iraq War was the single worst decision ever made. So once again, I'm concerned that you won't be supporting the president, that you will be influencing him in a way that I think his inclinations are actually better than many of his advisors, that the Iraq War was a mistake, that we need to come home from Afghanistan. He was against being involved in Syria at many times in his career. So I think he does have good instincts. And my main concern is that will you be one who will listen to what the president actually wants instead of being someone who advocates for us staying forever in Afghanistan, another Iraq war, bombing Syria without permission? So these are the advice you will give. And I guess that's my biggest concern with your nomination, is that I don't think it reflects the millions of people who voted for President Trump who actually voted for him because they thought it'd be different, that it wouldn't be the traditional bipartisan consensus to bomb everywhere and be everywhere around the world. So that's my main concern, and I just want to make sure that that's loud and clear to everyone. That is my concern.
Thank you, Senator Paul.
Thank you.
Wouldn't it be great if every elected Democrat sounded like that on foreign policy issues? Because I think that would be great. I mean, that would be ideal. That would mean you'd have a genuinely and legitimately anti-war Democratic Party. And, Rand Paul, he's a libertarian-ish. So that means on economics, I disagree with him completely. But on issues of, sometimes social issues, but mostly issues of war, he's been a lone, solitary voice of reason amidst, a sea of neocons and warhawks. And Mike Pompeo is specifically shitty. I mean, Mike Pompeo is a guy who is for torture, and he said that Edward Snowden should be executed. So an American hero who gave us information about how our government is illegally and unconstitutionally spying on us, this guy thought, you're threatening the powerful, so you should be killed because you're helping the enemy, even though that's totally untrue, totally disproven, zero evidence Edward Snowden helped any enemy or anything like that. He's just a guy who was a whistleblower who objected and was correct to object, to point out the government is acting in a fashion that's illegal and unconstitutional. But notice there, the more Rand Paul pushed Pompeo, the more Pompeo had nothing to fall back on. Because ultimately, when it comes down to it, all these characters who have never met a war they didn't like, they have nothing but platitudes. So you heard him. He was like, I don't think anybody disagrees that Trump can bomb Syria without congressional approval. You don't think anybody disagree? Well, that's flatly untrue. Because, like Rand Paul pointed out, hey, asshole, the Constitution makes clear Congress has the authority to declare war. The president cannot declare war on his own. So this idea of like, well, I don't think anybody disagrees. The fucking Constitution, which you guys always fucking act like, oh, the Constitution is basically a holy book and it is from God. They just ignore it when it's inconvenient. And here's an issue where it's totally inconvenient to Pompeo and the neocons and the warhawks, and, they never met a war they didn't like. They think Congress is pesky and gets in the way. So I don't care. Trump has the ability to bomb. I don't think anybody disagrees that the president can illegally and unconstitutionally bomb a country that didn't attack us. Unbelievable. And then I think the thing that pissed me off the most is on the issue of Afghanistan and Iraq, he's like, oh yeah, we gotta, fight terrorists and bring stability. What are you, 14? Because that's how a 14-year-old thought, like, that's what they thought was actually going on in Iraq and Afghanistan. Like, oh yeah, no, we're just there because we want to fight terrorists and bring stability and bring, like, freedom and democracy to people. That's why we do it. We do it because we're good people. Like, seriously? You're that fucking naive. We're going to fight terrorists and bring stability. It reminds me of an old Bill Maher joke. We're going to bring freedom to the people in Iraq if we have to kill every last one of them. I mean, that's really like the sentiment going on there. What do you mean we're going to fight terrorists? Like Rand Paul said, nobody who that attacked us on 9/11 is still alive. I mean, because this is what they do. They do nothing but goalpost moving. So they started out by saying, oh, we got to get Saddam Hussein because Saddam Hussein was responsible for 9/11. Then we learned that was bullshit. Then they just flippantly moved on to the next thing and they were like, oh, no, did we say he was responsible for 9/11? We didn't mean that. We mean he has weapons of mass destruction or something. And, the implication was he has them and he's going to use them on us any second. Blah. Nobody bothered to go like, hey, wait a second. Even if he has them, is he going to use them on us? So if he's not, then why the fuck? What, we're just going to go topple anybody that has weapons we don't want them to have? Meanwhile, we have all the biggest arsenal in the world. Does that mean people should bomb us and attack us? So we didn't make a case. We just kept moving the goalposts. And then finally, the last stop on the anti-Saddam train was, okay, he's just a bad guy. Well, wow, shocker. I mean, we would have to invade and overthrow the majority of governments in the world if our standard was, hey, it's a bad guy, therefore do a war against him. So, and they did this too with Afghanistan. And if the idea was, hey, let's get Osama bin Laden, bitch, done, come home, mission accomplished, fly the banner, have a parade, who gives a fuck? It's over, he's done, he's gone. Even the idea of, okay, well, fine, well, we got Saddam, but we didn't get Al-Qaeda. Even back as far as 2009, official reports from the U.S. government confirm there's less than 100 Al-Qaeda operatives in Afghanistan today. So all of your justifications, your rationale for war, it's all gone. It's all gone. Saddam Hussein's dead. Fucking Osama bin Laden's dead. Al-Qaeda is totally destroyed. You could say, hey, ISIS is the next one. But it was because we broke the Middle East that ISIS rose out of the ruins, so I doubt that us continuing to be there is the solution when it created the fucking problem. So none of their rationales are still in place, and it's like flabbergasting that, again, like Paul said, there are people who were born when we were at war, and now they're going to those wars. I mean, this is like, it's really fucked up stuff, man. And then, of course, you sound like an Alex Jones conspiracy theorist when you bring up, basic facts like, hey, oil production in Iraq shot through the roof after we invaded and started occupying it. Hey, the military-industrial complex made a tremendous amount of money as a result of this war. Dick Cheney and the no-bid contracts to Halliburton, and a lot of fucking people got rich. A lot of elites made a lot of money off of these permanent wars. You look at Afghanistan, you go, hey, there's trillions of dollars in mineral wealth in Afghanistan. There's opium there as well. So you got oil, you got minerals, you got opium, you got geopolitical control. I mean, the U.S., it's an open secret that the U.S. views the world as a global chessboard, and it's us versus Russia, Russia being the biggest threat to our power or whatever. And sometimes they throw China in there as well. So if we're looking at the world in that way and everything's like a chess, we got to have control of this region for that. And that a lot of this goes back to now what we're doing in Syria. The idea that we actually care about the civilians who are being hurt in Syria, we're fucking partaking in a genocide in Yemen right this second. We keep arming Israel as they assassinate journalists who are peacefully protesting. You're going to say we care about civilians? We're torturing people right now. Donald Trump signed a pro-torture executive memo on the day he gave his last State of the Union address. And now we're supposed to believe that this guy's, bleeding heart, I care so much about civilians. Which is why I increased drone strikes 432% and already surpassed Obama's civilian death count with my military actions. You have to be so naive to believe this, but it's, as George Carlin says, it's a big club and you ain't in it. And Rand Paul is right there pointing out, hey, you're in the fucking club, aren't you? And Mike Pompeo's like, yes, I am. In fact, I'm going to keep pushing for more and more war. Thank you for exposing my hypocrisy and my stupidity.